I think is very inspiring is just because you move countries doesn't mean that you have a career where it is. She was able to transition. She even learned to convert her jokes. Are you with us, Alex?
I am. And go ahead, keep talking about me as if I'm not here, I'll hide.
We can thank our producer 100%, Javier, for bringing you on board because I would not have been able to do it by myself. So thank you so much.
Javier, you guys don't understand. For those of you watching and listening, Javier got on a boat, swam to me here in Israel, brought me a spare key so I could get into my apartment and get my phone and log on. No, Javier, really, we were having some technical difficulties. I was seeing you stream live on IG, couldn't see it on Facebook. Finally, I saw it on Facebook, and now I'm here.
Alex, I didn't think that you were going to make it. There were many reasons why I didn't think that you were going to make it, but I am so happy that you're with us.
I am too, and I'm grateful to you for like holding the air and filling up all the time before I could join you.
Well, they say that that is the mark of a professional, so I hope that I am
filling
those shoes.
Kol hakavod. Well done, everyone. Well done, Deshana.
Okay, Alex, I gave you an introduction, but I'm going to give you another one for the viewers that are just joining us on Instagram now. And by the way, I started this live on Facebook, but we're switching it to Instagram so that we can have both of us at the same time.
Cool. I don't even know if I'm joining you on Instagram or Facebook. I feel like I'm joining you via Facebook now, but this is either's great.
Okay, so you're joining us on Facebook, so I'm going... Never mind what I just said. I have all of the cameras. I have all the lights. Everything's up. So I'm going to look at you right here. So I'm going to give you a proper introduction. Now, Alex is a professional comedian. This is the moment that you've all been waiting for. She grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, and started her career in stand-up comedy at the age of 21. She performed all over the U.S., and she draws on her many identities. If you are a Jewish person, you know you have many identities. She represents the LGBT community, her Jewish identity. She advocates for both of these. She's Israeli now. She's American. She has been all throughout Europe, so she is a woman of many hats. She has worked in the entertainment field for a while, and she is trying to increase feminine visibility with her field and Israeli representation around the globe, which is very important because, as you know, it is very important to bring culture to people who have not experienced it before. So she is going to join us now and tell us how she transformed her comedic career into becoming a star TV writer. Alex, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. What a lovely introduction. I wish I was a woman of many hats. I only have one big enough to fit all this hair in it. But yeah, it's good to be here. And thank you again, Javier, for making this happen on a technological level.
I can't do things technologically, and if he wasn't here, I think it would be very difficult for me, and especially for the sake that I thought that we were speaking on a completely different platform, which we are not. So I take that back. So Alex, you're with us now, and it is a total miracle. Tell us what happened.
I lost my key. We took the dogs to the park, and I had our key in my pocket, and it must have fallen out. You know, I love Zara. I love Zara jeans, but these pockets, man. I'm just kidding. No, I don't know how it fell out. I have no idea where it is. But our friend had a spare. We went to drove to her house to go meet her, got the house key, came back, all in time.
I can't believe that you made it happen. Now, tell us about your professional growth. I think that there are a lot of people who are completely changing their career paths right now in light of Corona. And I think a lot of people would be interested in understanding how you were able to grow from being an amateur to being an intermediate to being a pro. So tell us a little bit about that.
I think you and I discussed like it's relevant for me to talk about the transition from stand-up to TV writing because that was a little bit more organic. And I just, as a comic, I'm a joke writer. So I had a good reputation as a joke writer and someone who, with a writing style that worked. And so I really started off writing jokes for other comics and punching up their late night packets, the jokes that they would submit to late night talk shows. And then that led to, punching up their sketches. And then I started off writing some sketches for an Instagram model, which is like when all of a sudden you get paid to write a minute-long sketch, you're like, that's pretty cool. That's a minute-long sketch. All right, like a page and a half long. That's all. I like getting paid for a page and a half long. And by no means was I a television writer at that point, but that's kind of the moment where I was like, okay, I'm a professional writer now. I never really thought I was always, a joke writer, but I never thought I could go into television writing because I'm dyslexic and writing actually is difficult for me. It's an agonizing process for any writer, but like particularly for me, it's not like natural or easy or anything. But I decided that's the route I wanted to go. Very typical route for a stand-up comic to take. I'd say probably it was a 2-year, I'd already put in a decade into my stand-up career. And I'd say, it was a 2-year period of time of me trying to get a job as a television writer from the moment I decided, which obviously would have been.
I want to stop right there.
Go ahead.
There's something really important that you just said, which was that it took you 2 years to get into that role, right?
Yeah, I would say.
So I think that a lot of the things I've been hearing lately from people who are going through employment, an employment journey, is that it didn't happen overnight, basically. So I'm really happy that you said that it took you a couple of years to really get your feet in the boots. I just made that expression up.
Like it.
But so I just want you to tell us a little bit more on that point.
I think it's important for me to make the distinction that I had already put in a solid decade into my career as a stand-up comic. And even then, in the beginning of my stand-up career, it was years before I was consistently paid, and even then in the world of stand-up, I think in any performance art, you kind of regress. Like you're constantly, one foot is over the line of being treated like a professional, and then you're always kind of crossing back over to the other end of the line, where you're doing things for free, doing things as favors, doing things like, it's a weird line that's not easily defined like it is in most professions. But because I had that solid decade as an established stand-up, that's what I think allowed me to make a relatively smooth and very short transition to eventually get a staff writing position for a TV show. 2 years is not a lot of time. That's like a blink of an eye. And that's what I think is what you're trying to point out to your viewers. Like, that is an extraordinarily fast, I'm lucky and fortunate and an exception, definitely not the rule. I think that's important to highlight.
I think that is very encouraging, and thank you so much for sharing that with us. Basically putting in 10 years, and like you said, and you can see that in a lot of creative industries, where you have one step forward, finally you think you're a professional, you're getting paid, and then it could really just all get thrown out the window overnight, and you're starting again from scratch.
Yeah, exactly. The consistency is not what you would want. It's not consistent. It's not what you would expect, I don't think. What a lot of people
especially if you're used to having a 9 to 5. So,
look at my cabinets. My cabinets say it all. These are not the cabinets of someone who has been consistently paid for their art from the moment they started it. You know what I mean? No,
thank you.
I'm gonna turn. I'm gonna turn.
Thank you for being honest.
No, I'm kidding. It's just, but there is some truth to it. It's like, to be right sized, right? Like, that's a really huge part of being an independent anything, is to be kind of have some level of self-awareness and maintain some level of humility and not live outside your means. Art is a struggle. Art comes from struggle too. It's inspired by struggle, but art is a struggle, and living off of it is no different from I would say it's undoubtedly harder than in living off of any other profession which you're fully qualified to do.
Okay. Now tell us a little bit about the work that you are doing now, and why do you care about it?
I care about it because I care about I think I heard you earlier in your stream mentioning this trend with Israel establishing itself as, you know, a global front runner in the export of storytelling. If I'm not mistaken, I kind of was coming in and out, jumping from Instagram to Facebook, trying to figure out which feed I could where I could catch you. But I think you talked about that. And that's important. A lot of people don't realize that Israel is the third largest importer into the American market, into American television, behind the UK and the Netherlands. So when it comes to TV, Israel's right up there, along with its reputation as a tech giant. So that's meaningful to me because, you know, this is Israel, the geopolitics. There are some obstacles Israel faces, but you can't boycott creativity, and this is why it's important to me to be a part of this awesome trend in Israeli storytelling and Israeli-born television and Israeli-born productions, because, you know, at the end of the day, you can't ban artistic expression, you can't protest art. You can, but if you do, it doesn't look good. You don't look good doing it. That's where, you know, then
that's not the language you used when you spoke to me yesterday.
What do you mean? Oh, yes. No, can I say that? I mean, you know, yeah. You look like an asshole. So it's at the end of the day, I think that the exchange of weapons and exchange of money and exchange of defense, that's normal. That's a man's world. But the real exchange of art and the exchange of culture, this is where real tolerance and real peace and real, I think, positive, you know, creative, this is the real essence of peace and creation, is the exchange of those kinds of ideas. This is why it's important to me.
Yes, and important not to be a fascist a-hole.
Yes, fascist. Yes, that's the language I used yesterday.
And I really laughed about it. So I wanted to talk about something that you had mentioned, which is the UAE and Bahrain. You would like to do some stand-up sets there. Can you tell us a little bit about those aspirations?
Dying to.
And why? For the people that don't know why you would want to go there or what's happening, tell us.
I'm dying to, as much as you know, because I think you mentioned earlier, I transferred my career from North America to Europe. And as much as I'm dying to go back to Europe and perform, the first places I want to go to perform stand-up as soon as the travel bans are lifted and we return, we're in a post-COVID world, I would love to perform in the UAE and in Bahrain. Bahrain already, that I'm aware of, already has somewhat of a awesome English-speaking stand-up scene. And I used to open up for Carlos Mencia as well, a lot for many years. I know he did a lot of shows in Abu Dhabi and in Dubai. So I know that, you know, the UAE crowds are all about some American comics. It would be awesome to go there. Why? I mean, you know, just what I just said. I think that's when, you know, treaties can be signed and goods can be imported and things like that. But when you see artists exchange, when you see artists participating in an exchange of their values, that's when I think is an indication of real diplomacy.
It is an indication of real diplomacy, and just because I'm such a news buff, I want to remind my listeners who've been with me that there was an Egyptian celebrity who recently was under so much pressure and even had charges thrown at him in Egypt for posting a picture with Omer Adam. And it was such a huge thing, but I think what most people saw from it are two artists celebrating each other, and I'm really glad that that's what you want to do. Now, I want to make sure, I think that we need to establish a little bit for our listeners who don't know exactly what you're doing. And I know that you can't tell us necessarily names of organizations that you're working with or names of programs that you're working with, but can you just highlight what your work looks like? Give us as much as you can so that our viewers can have an image of what types of stuff that you're working on.
I'll put it this way. I lived in LA. I lived in Los Angeles for 7 years. And like I said, the last 2 or so of which I started to orient my mind to, I started seeking out that like staff writing position on a television show or to sell a TV show, pitch concept, pitch formats, pitch TV ideas. That was what the last couple of years of my time spent in LA, living in LA, looked like. And in the end, when I left LA and came to Israel, I got the job. I got the job in Israel that I wanted in LA. So if that gives any indication to your viewers, like I found an LA job in Israel. And I mean, as a staff writer, you do your magic. I mean, and I'm a comedian, so I do punch-up writing. So that's about the extent of what I can say. Outside of that, generally speaking, look at Homeland, that was on Showtime. Look at Euphoria on HBO, which of course got Zendaya being the youngest person ever to receive an Emmy Award. These shows are Israeli shows, and they're just 2 I'm mentioning. I'm sure a lot of you binge watched Fauda during Corona times. I'm sure a lot of you binge watched a lot of Israeli shows that you watched in Hebrew. I think that being a part of that trend that we've mentioned of so much in our conversation is awesome. And it's not going to stop. This is really just the beginning. It's got a lot of momentum behind it. And so does this concept of multilingual production. So not just the concept of Israeli shows or any shows from around the globe being adapted into an English dialogue and being adapted for a different market, but being as is. We can watch a show these days now, and with subtitles and streaming platforms, we can watch a show that's in Arabic, Farsi, and English, like Tehran, and Hebrew. We can literally watch shows that have 3 or 4 different languages in the dialogue. That's amazing. And that's something that as global citizens, we should be very, very excited and proud of.
We are very proud of it. And I think that it is a global effort. Now, before I go to my final question for you, I just want to hit on the fact that you have renewed and, as you say, gotten more mileage out of some of your jokes by converting them into Hebrew.
It's true.
Can you just really briefly tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, did you ever? Yeah, briefly. Okay. Did you ever see the movie Arrival? And the whole takeaway from that movie is this concept of like language is the thing that informs the way you think. So when you have a bunch of jokes in a certain language, and then all of a sudden you start what's the word? I'm stupid. Like, why am I, who pays me to do this? When you translate words into a different language and then you start speaking these jokes in a completely different language than you ever were before, it alters the way you think about them. So I think that trying them out in a new language simply just gave them that shiny brand new feel again. And it reinvigorated them and allowed me to approach them differently and change them maybe to a greater degree than I would have been willing to in English. That's what I can say about that. It was cool.
You did this for Israelis.
Yeah, I wanted to be able to perform more in my new country, and the only way I could perform more was to be willing to do, stand up in not only English, but to also do it in Hebrew. So that was my choice.
That is unbelievable.
I'm not good at it. I didn't say I was good at it, but like, it did help me learn, it was like taking a leap in learning the language as opposed to taking a couple small steps at first. But then Corona hit and I was like, no one's going to hear these. I don't have to keep translating my jokes into Hebrew now. I'm probably not going to perform for another year.
Well, we hope that you do, and we
Me
hope
too.
that you find ways. Now, you said that you are going to release an album at the start of 2021. What does an album look like for a comedian and scriptwriter, and what is that? And tell us about that.
Just a comedy album, it's a category in the Grammys, best spoken word, best comedy album. So just exactly what you'd think, a set that I performed live, somewhere between 50 minutes and an hour and 20, whatever, that has been audio recorded and released in an album format with like jokes kind of like tracks, just like different song tracks in an album. So I do intend to take one of the audio recordings of one of my last shows before Corona hit and releasing it early in 2021 before my birthday in March. I didn't know that those last shows I did in Europe back in February and March would be my last shows. I didn't obviously have the foresight of this global pandemic, but the fact that I have them audio recorded is cool, and I definitely intend to release one of them.
Well, we are looking forward to hearing those, Alex. Thank you so much for being with us and sharing a little bit of your life. Before I let you go, do you have a takeaway or an advice for any of us that are content creators, people living in Israel who don't speak Hebrew and want to continue being creative? What's your big advice?
For English speakers in Israel, my big advice is this. It's really a criticism. You're spoiled, as am I, and trying to learn the language new, or try to take your art and transmute it into like Hebrew, or try to adapt it for Israeli culture will only benefit you. Whether it's scary to you or you have doubts in yourself, trust me, it's one of the most esteemable things you can do, and there's no need to be afraid of not being able to. It'll be great. It'll be artistically fulfilling and invigorating, and you can do it.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much, Alex. It was great to have you with us through all of the trials and tribulations.
Thank you so much for having me. And Javier, thank you for making it work. You guys are awesome. Good job today. And thanks for your patience with me.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. All right. Well, that is it for today's news. Today is Thursday, December 17th, 2020. Tel Aviv has a low of 14 degrees Celsius and a high of 18 degrees. I'm in New York. Now, that's 57 degrees Fahrenheit for the low, going up to 64 degrees for the high in Tel Aviv. Here in New York, it is a blizzard. It is below freezing. Subscribe to the Israel Daily News podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you're hearing it from. I am everywhere. Thank you, Candace Cohen, Jack Meltzner, Orion Fitlovich, and Javier Plavnik for your contributions to the research, writing, production, and ideation of this show. Everyone, have a great 8th night of Hanukkah and a productive day and a Shabbat Shalom. Happy weekend to you.